Welcome to Fool's Key Tarot. I'm Ben, and this is a daily reading for Sunday, May 26th, 2025. Let's see what the cards have in store for us. First, the Queen of Cups. This could represent some introspection, maybe the sharing of emotions with other people. You might be guiding other people's emotions or influencing them. The Seven of Cups, a second Cups card. This one is more about hypothetical situations and daydreaming. It can represent a choice that you have to make, but it has more to do with the deliberative process rather than the making of the decision, and in particular, thinking through all of the possibilities, gaming them out, trying to figure out where they might lead. Finally, the Two of Pentacles, indicating balance, juggling. It can mean a busy schedule or having a lot to do and not really being sure where to put your time, where to put your energy. So that matches with the Seven of Cups in terms of having a lot of different options or possibilities. So I think that today you find yourself caught between a lot of different directions you might go. Now, this is more likely to be a long-term heading rather than just deciding what to do with your day or with a certain part of your day, because the Seven of Cups represents a higher level decision making. This isn't about what to eat for lunch. This is about what direction to take my life. That's the kind of questions that are usually indicated by the Seven of Cups. And that's just because the person on the card is thinking through all these different possibilities and imagining where they might lead to. And for smaller decisions, you don't have to game it out that far. It's pretty obvious what the cause or the effect is going to be for a simpler or less important decision. But for decisions that are going to have implications far into the future, you really need to think through, hypothetically, what if I choose A versus B versus C? Let me really play it out in my head and think what it might be like. So this tends to indicate decisions that have a long effects into the future or large impacts on your life. So I think that you're pondering such a decision. Now, the Seven of Cups being about that state of thinking through and imagining the possibilities, I doubt that this is the day that you will make the decision, although it could be. But I think that this is more a day of pondering the possibilities, what outcomes might be led to, and which are more attractive or less attractive than the others. And there might be so many options that you're having a hard time deciding how to sort them through. Do you pick the few that are the most likely and spend all your time thinking through those? Or should you take the time to really consider options that are more out there and seem very unlikely to be chosen? But maybe if you spend enough time thinking them through, one of them might actually be a good choice. And let's suppose that there are 20 options that are all almost certainly not going to be the one that you want to pick. Well, if they each only have a 1% chance of being the best option, but there's 20 of them, then altogether there's maybe a 20% chance that one of these edge cases or weird choices that don't seem like they're probably a good idea, altogether there might be a good chance that one of them is a good option, even if any one of them in particular is unlikely. And this would just be because there's so many of them. And so you might be caught trying to decide, how do I spend my time sorting through these options? I cannot game all of them out all the way to the end in complete detail. That's just not a tenable way of making any decision. And so you have to prioritize. You have to choose where to expend your energy. And I think that you might be having a hard time making that decision today, that decision about how to spend your energy towards this bigger decision. So there's kind of two decisions going on. There's the bigger decision that you have to make that you're in the middle of making today, and then the smaller decision about how to expend your energy and how to prioritize those different options, how much time to spend on each option, thinking it through, and do you concentrate your effort on the most attractive options and kind of discount the ones that seem like they're not likely to be the right choice, or do you try to give equal weight or more equal weight to all of these different choices in order to make sure that you don't miss some option that might seem unassuming or unlikely at first, but the more you dig into it, the more you realize this might be a good choice. So that's what I'm seeing between the Two of Pentacles and the Seven of Cups, a decision about a decision, sort of. Now, the Queen of Cups over here is adding a level of introspection and intuition to the reading. So the Seven of Cups is already a Cups card, but with the second Cups and with the Queen being the ruler of the Cup suit, I think that there's a lot of emotions swirling around. You're trying to think through logically what happens if I choose A versus B versus C. And there's a certain amount of reason and inference that has to be done to think through what will be the consequences of these different choices. But in addition to the tangible consequences, there's also your own feelings to factor in. It might be that you have a gut instinct that certain options are better than others. And in fact, going back to the Two of Pentacles and trying to balance and prioritize, I think that you might be caught between your gut instinct about these options and then the more logical approach of, well, thinking it through, this option seems like a good idea, but I have a bad feeling about it. Or the opposite of that, which would be thinking it through, I don't see why it would work out well, but I just feel like it's going to be a good choice. So I think the Queen of Cups represents your gut feeling about these options. And then these two cards together are indicating a more logical approach where you think through from a place of reason, what should you expect given any of these choices? And there's probably a conflict here. That's the Two of Pentacles coming back with these two different approaches, these two different possibilities about how to make your decision. I think that your feelings are strong. I think that you might not understand it, but when you think through these different options, there's at least certain choices that you could make that you have a very strong gut feeling about how they would work out. Whether that's positive or negative, you think you already have a strong feeling about what those options would represent before you've even fully thought through what all the consequences would be. And with the Queen of Cups being a card that shares her energy and her feelings with other people, I think that one possibility to try to break through this impasse would be to consult other people. The Queen of Cups could represent another person in your life who could give you some clarity here. Maybe you're a little bit too insular in this decision-making process, and if your own thoughts are kind of confused or overwhelming, somebody on the outside might be able to give you that clarity that can help you see through to choosing the best option. That person probably isn't going to come in and just tell you what to pick, but they might help you figure out why you feel the way you do about certain options, and then also help you sort through how to deal with the logical, reasonable outcomes that you can foresee given these choices versus just your gut instinct intuition about which ones are good or bad. That can be really hard to decide which of those to follow when they're in conflict. And if you're just trying to think about that in your own head, it can get really confusing. But there might be a Queen of Cups in your life who could come in, help you sort through those thoughts and those feelings, help you think through these possibilities, and come to a decision about how to balance all of these different factors. The Two of Pentacles is often about balancing different things. And so I think ultimately here what you need to do is balance the intuitive with the logical, and also balance your time in terms of how much you spend thinking about your feelings versus thinking about the expected consequences of these different choices. And there definitely could be some outside help with getting to the bottom of that. Ultimately, of course, it's going to be your decision in the end about which of these that you choose. And in terms of guidance, I think the cards are telling you, don't make this decision. If it's at all possible, don't make it while you still feel kind of out of balance. If you still feel that there's a tension between your feelings and the logical reasoning of thinking through these different decisions, then even if you've become convinced that I should follow my gut or I should follow my logic, as long as that tension exists, don't rush into the decision. Even if you think you've figured out which is more important or which one you should follow, when the two are still in an unresolved conflict with each other, the decision you make, even if it's the right one, it might not be made with the right state of mind, and therefore it might not play out the way that you want or expect. And so I think the cards are telling you, try to get to even footing, try to get onto steady ground where you have thought all this through carefully and you understand why there might be a conflict between your thoughts and your feelings. That doesn't mean that those conflicts are necessarily going to resolve, But if you get to the bottom of why they're there, then you will feel like you're more on solid footing to make this decision. And at that point, you'll be prepared to make the best decision for you. And so the cards are asking you to get to the bottom of these different factors that might be pushing in different directions. And there might be a Queen of Cups in your life who could help provide that clarity, but you might be the Queen of Cups. It might just be about getting some time to reflect and think all this through very carefully. So if you enjoyed this reading, then subscribe to see more. And if you'd like to learn about tarot cards or try some of my online guided readings, then head on over to foolskey.com where you can check that out. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.